Hey guys, welcome back to my channel for another video today. If you are returning, let's talk about how to change your life or your reality if you feel stuck, if you don't know where to go, if you've been in a rut. That's what we're going to be debriefing today, and let's talk about it. So the first thing that I want you to do is open your mind up to the idea that this change that you're looking for is possible, because what I see in a lot of other people is they're looking to change their lives, but they don't actually believe that they can change it. There was a study that I was reading a few years ago when I was reading a book. I don't remember what book it was from or where the study was taken, blah, 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 all of that stuff. But I remember this study very specifically for this one thing. And it basically showed that pessimistic people on average were more realistic about what they could achieve. And pessimistic is basically like people who have a very negative outlook on life. They found that they were actually more accurate. So in other words, they were more right. They were right most of the time about what they could achieve. But they found that optimists, on the other hand, on average achieved more than pessimists. So optimistic people are people who think in more of positive terms, and they see light everywhere they go pretty much. And I'm an optimist. I always have been in a way. I knew I wasn't in the best friend groups when I would be super optimistic and then I would be shut down for my optimism, you know? So take yourself out of those environments. If you're somebody who is always ridiculed for your positivity, I'm telling you, positivity is going to make you succeed. Obviously, don't be apathetic and like indifferent about stuff, you know. Don't just like ignore the stuff that's happening or just brush everything under the rug. I think that's another form of optimism, or like being positive. People think that it's another way of just being really passive about things. When I mean optimism, I mean thinking that you can do the craziest things out there that are possible because you can. If there's somebody walking this earth that has done some of the things that you want to do, then it is possible. And now that you know it's possible, you can take the steps that you need in order to get where you want to go. The first thing that you're going to do, okay, if you don't believe that this change is possible, you don't understand quantum physics. I mean, you don't have to understand quantum physics to change your life, but it helps a lot. Go and read Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Oh my goodness, I have been reading this book lately. My sister just bought it a couple weeks ago, so we've been sharing it, but she has told me how much has blown her mind. So I went in and I read it as well. I read it this morning, actually. I usually stay in my bed and I read my books before I get out of my bed, just so I can start the day with a really clean mind. But I was reading this book and he goes into basically literally the science, okay? For somebody who's very logical, you don't believe in esoteric stuff, this is going to completely change your outlook on reality being completely made up in the mind first. And this book will break it down for you, so I definitely recommend. I always give you guys my book recommendations, so I am recommending you that book right now. Go and read that book. It is so life-changing. But he essentially talks about the science behind how we are able to change our lives, and it has a lot to do with like sending out particular vibrations. He touches on a similar idea that I actually found out only through manifestation in my own life. Like, it doesn't matter what you want, it matters who you are. It matters what you are broadcasting to the universe, to the outside world, to God, or whatever it is that you believe in. That's what matters most. It's not what you want, it's not your desires, but it's a match. You're just attracting whatever matches you, right? And the reason I wanted to film this video today as well is because I was thinking to myself yesterday, you know what, my reality it's not bad right now, but it could be even better, immensely better. So let me make some changes. And in order to do that, I have to really get outside of my own mind and start to break down what's most familiar to you. The reason that this process is so difficult is because, again, what's familiar to us feels most comfortable. So stepping out of that comfort zone is very uncomfortable, very tiring. You feel depleted. You feel like everybody else doesn't really understand you. I feel like a lot of people from my past didn't understand me in that sense when I always wanted to like change my life or strive for more or whatever it was. And now I can tell you very much that it is very worth it to go against the grain and just go on your own path, even if it means that other people won't understand why you're taking the path that you're taking. So now that you've done the hard part about opening your mind up to the idea that this change is possible, you're going to begin what I like to call the purging phase. So what is purging? Essentially, it's exactly what it sounds like. You're essentially just taking everything out of your life that no longer serves you. The thing about staying in things that are entirely outdated is you are going to have to keep bringing yourself back down to the same vibrations in order to be a match to those things, which means you will not receive anything else that you might be wanting that might be at a higher frequency. You would have to stay and remain at the same vibration, and you won't get any of the other blessings that you want if it doesn't align on the same frequency. This is a mistake that I made. Like, if I was around people that I knew had a lower vibrational frequency, I would willingly do things to bring myself back down to that level, because I knew that if I were to let go of them, or if they were to let go of me, that I would rise higher, and then I wouldn't have access to them anymore, and they wouldn't have access to me. So I think this is a really good time to start thinking about the things in your life that really just don't make you feel good. It makes you dread waking up in the morning. It makes you not want to spend time with the people that are in your life because they no longer serve an actual purpose. And I see this a lot in relationships as well. Most women that I look up to always say to me, like, you know, if you have your own money and you are confident in yourself and you're doing what you love with your life, anybody else that comes into your life can only add value. They can never be somebody that takes away value, because if you have someone in your life that takes things away from you, you will feel depleted and you will go into a whole, you know, rabbit hole of making the worst choices for yourself, and you're just gonna look depleted. You're gonna feel depleted, you're gonna look like trash, and, you know, so forth. It's a lot better to stick with people who actually inspire something inside you, but also add that value. You constantly need to be taking a look and assessing at the people in your life, the habits in your life, and thinking, okay, what value does this add to my life? Which is a very important note to make for yourself. How are you gonna know who makes you feel good and makes you feel bad if you're never taking the time to ask yourself those really deep questions? Spend time to try and figure it out for yourself. Who makes you feel good? Who makes you feel depleted? Who makes you feel ugly? Like, that's a really big one, you know? Because a lot of people will make you feel very uncomfortable in your own skin. And the result is that you feel ugly. Like, you just don't feel good in yourself. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter how you carry yourself, how you dress, whatever. If you're around the wrong people, they will make you feel like the tiniest person and the most irrelevant person on earth. And they do that by hyperfixating on your weaknesses. You have to pull yourself out of that and realize that the people that really love you will never make you feel that way about yourself, and will always be your number one supporter, always be cheering you on. And as much as that is a rarer thing to find, you will find it if you stay consistent on this journey with yourself. The question that I always used to ask myself that knocked me back on my feet and just made me like get rid of anything that was not serving me was, do you really want to have another year of doing the exact same shit with the exact same people in the exact same position? And just the thought of that and the idea of that disgusted me so much, to the point is where that was enough motivation for me to just keep going, or just like break down my entire reality, no matter how painful it was, and just rebuild a new one. Because I was just, at one point, you just grow sick and tired. If you're not at that point yet, you will get there, trust me, because it's not natural for the human mind to not be developing. You need to constantly be growing, because it's the thing that's going to make you happy. When people are depressed, when people are sad about their life, it's probably because they're not making much progress. Their internal body, their soul, they can feel that there's no changes actually being made, even if they might look different or be a little bit different. Like, there's no developmental changes being made. And that's the thing that's causing them to be depressed. They're damaging their dopamine receptors using so many other things and chasing after things that are never going to actually fill that for them. At one point in my life, I didn't care whether the change was good or bad. I just wanted change. I remember how sick I was of everything just being the same. And that's actually around the time that I started my YouTube channel as well. So for me to take such a big leap like that, it all stemmed from the fact that I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. And if you have arrived there, that is a sign that you need to make some changes. And now that the hardest part is over, you have arrived at what I like to call the recovery phase. And this is probably the best time because it feels the most peaceful. You really feel like your own best friend, and this is the perfect opportunity for you to discover what it is that you love again. If it felt like for a long time you didn't have your own life because for whatever reason you were caught up in somebody else's BS, or you were just, you know, not really living your life to its fullest potential, this is your time to do that. So within the recovery phase, this is the time to figure out what kind of habits do you want to have, what kind of people do you want to be around, who do you want to be, you know, rewrite the person that you want to be. I have about 6 or 7 years of worth of journaling, and in every single journal there is an entry of who I wanted to be, and I wrote it down to the T, like everything in detail about who it was that I wanted to be, and I wrote it in present tense as if I was already that girl. So how much money I wanted to make, the way I wanted to carry myself, and whatever it is, like think of it down to the last detail. You have to make yourself like your favorite project that you're working on, and constantly forever be working on that project, because it doesn't ever end. It shouldn't ever end. This part of the process, I will say, is quite confusing because you just want to find out how to be you again. You want to live life for you again, and you don't want to think about other people. Like whenever I arrive at this phase, somehow I don't think about anybody else. Like I just don't have anything else in my mind about what anybody else is doing or whatever it is. Like I'm just very tunnel vision on myself, and that's why this part of the journey is such a blessing, because you really don't, like, you really tune out everything else and you just hyper focus on whatever it is that you need to do and who you want to be. So this is around the time that I started to pick up the things that I love to do. A couple years ago, when I was first in this kind of process or part of the journey, I picked up yoga. 2 years later, I still go to yoga, love it. It's part of my routine because I feel like it just makes me a better version of myself. It makes me more in my feminine energy. It gives me goddess vibes, okay? It gives me goddess energy. I don't know why, but whenever I'm done my yoga session, I feel like I have this glow and I feel like I'm emulating this type of energy that I just love. It's not just for that, but it's like for the mental, the emotional. It just stimulates my brain in all the right ways. And finally, this is when you arrive at the rediscovery phase, which I pray you get to, because this is the best part of the journey. Every single step is a different step. It's gonna happen maybe in different orders for you. It might just be random. This is where something happens, okay? And it just snaps you into like the perspective of a third party person, or like you can think of it as like a hawk. You know how a hawk like flies over everything and it can see everything that's happening on the bottom, but like nobody can actually notice the hawk because everybody's busy doing random stuff. Think of it like that. You become the hawk, essentially. You become the third party person who's kind of looking at yourself as another person, or you look at the situation or whatever it is that you've been through from such a different lens that you weren't able to see things with before. I'm not sure if I touched on this in my last video, but I had it written down because this was something that I was experiencing within the last couple months, where I was just seeing everything that happened to me in the past from such different eyes that I was like, whoa, this is so cool. Because the thing is, you don't gain this perspective until time passes. I know that some people don't believe that time heals all, but I believe that I'm somebody who actually fully believes that to my core, that time truly does heal all. Like there's just certain things in life that happen that won't be fixed without giving yourself the time to really cope and process with it. But listen, I move fast, okay? Most things I get over in like 1-2 months, because I'm just like, you know what, it is what it is. And also I have such a love for my life that I don't want to put the burden onto myself of like just playing the victim, or just feeling like I can never pull myself out of situations. Anything that I've ever been through in my life, I've always gotten out of it, and you will too. You're still here, you're breathing, you're alive, and your soul chose this very life for a particular reason. You need to find out what that reason is. Like you kind of zoom out and it genuinely shocks you, because you're like, this is not how the situation looked in my mind before. Here's something to keep in mind though. You will only grow to be a better person out of this journey if you have a good intention with it. Because the thing is, if something were to happen to me and my intention with it was to be resentful and be angry at the world and be like, why did this happen to me, blah 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 blah, then obviously I'm not going to get a good outcome out of the situation. But if I said, okay, this thing happened to me, what can I really do about it? Nothing. Okay, let me move on with my life. Let me fall more deeply in love with my life than I already am. And let me make some changes, because obviously this happened for a reason. It's teaching me something. What can I learn? What can I write down? How can I meditate with the emotions that I'm experiencing during this time? Think about all those little things. And I promise you, because you set that intention, you will get rewarded, my love. You will get gifted great things, okay? I don't mean to sound all like mystical and witchy, because it's kind of just common sense. At this point, building your dream reality or building your dream self is logic. You have to go through certain steps. There's not enough room in your life. You can't just fit everything. Like imagine you're moving into a house, right? You'd have to move out the old furniture, and then you can start buying new things, and you'd have to make money in order to buy the new furniture. And then certain furniture you can't afford because you haven't reached that level yet. And then when you start earning that much money, you get to buy the better furniture. You see what I'm saying? I don't know if that makes sense, but that is the metaphor that we're going to be rolling with, because that's what I feel like is right, okay? So anyways, this moment that I'm speaking of, I would almost compare to like an artist looking at a painting that they've been working on for like 6-7 months, and now they finally get to just sit back and marvel at it, because you really are an artist and your life is your canvas, and you can do whatever you want with it. You have to believe that the crazy things are possible, because only the people that think those crazy things are possible do the crazy things. And finally, I'm going to talk about some things to keep in mind that I wrote down, because I was like, you know what would I have wanted to hear when I was going through this journey myself? And this is what I will tell you from my perspective. Number one is that the knot will undo itself, because just like all things in life, what goes up must come down and vice versa, okay? It's not natural for a human being to stay at one level of frequency all the time, because eventually you're going to come back down to like neutral, you know? If you're too high, you're going to come back down to neutral. If you're too low, you're going to come back down to neutral. So you don't have to worry, you'll be fine. Number two, the secret to lasting happiness isn't being happy all the time. That is unrealistic, but it's finding the right tools to not be overconsumed when things are too high, and too overconsumed when you're on the low, you know? And the secret that I found to lasting happiness is always remaining in the middle ground. That means that whatever happens is not pulling you to all these different places. You remain in the middle ground. You're like a really sturdy tree in the middle of a storm. You're just kind of just taking it as it is. And obviously something's hurt in life, right? It's human. I don't really agree with like certain stoicism philosophies, or just like the way people are very like, oh, don't let this affect you and make sure that you're very like this, because obviously we're human beings, like things are going to affect us, but we have control over how we interpret things. And I heard once in a guided meditation, the girl said, our responsibility is our responsibility. The way that we respond to things is completely our responsibility, and nobody else can do it for us. There's detachment and all these other things that you have that come into play when you're staying in the middle ground, and picking up all these different skills will help you immensely staying at that level. But that is the basis of understanding how to be at real peace. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, if it helped you, let me know, and I will see you guys in the next one.